Cosmopolitan is the biggest women's fashion magazine in the world. We cover beauty, fashion, celebrity, sex.
Don't you switch Tinder off during the day?
It's an amazing place, and we try to capture all of it on the page for the reader.
I've worked at a lot of magazines in my career, and Cosmo is by far the best experience I've ever had.
The life of a Cosmo girl is definitely a good one. A lot of glitz and glam goes with the job.
Can we just get one shot of all the guys without their shirts?
The army of Cosmopolitan editors is everywhere, and they have to bring their A game every single day.
It's very competitive. We all are fighting for the top spot.
You have to be the best, and you can't get comfortable.
If I don't come back with the right photos, my job could be gone tomorrow.
There's a storm coming.
This February, go beyond the cover and into the lives of the people behind Cosmo.
This wasn't supposed to happen. We're not in school. This is a workplace.
You're a bit of a hot mess.
Discover what it takes to run the empire
I bust my ass every single day.
that defines an industry.
Nothing and no one is getting in my way.
They live it, then they print it.
It is challenging, but I'm living in New York City. You can pretty much say I'm living the dream. Cheers.
So Cosmo, only on E!
You can just keep your shirt off.
Yeah, might as well.
Hello. Oh, kicking it off with a bang. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. You know, as somebody who has been reading Cosmo for probably too long, probably from like too young of an age,
Is no too long.
I
You
am.
should read it from the age of 9 to 90.
There we go. Probably, I'm going to say it was maybe a little bit earlier than 9, but okay, fine. I'm very excited to chat with you and to meet you. Why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about how this show came to be?
Well, when Parks and Rec and The Office went off the air, I was like, oh, there's no show about work, which is where so many of us spend our time. And we had been repeatedly asked by people, can we make a show at Cosmo? Can we make a show at Cosmo? And we thought, well, why not? Why not make a show at Cosmo? I talked to the staff about it. They were all super upbeat. They've all grown up with docu-series and reality shows. And they were like, okay, let's do it. But their condition was it really has to follow us around. We can't be doing things for the camera. We have to, it's got to be our real life. So it feels a bit fly on the wall. And there are moments when everybody is vulnerable, and there are moments when there are some HR infractions.
Oh, interesting. You know, you worked at Marie Claire, and you've been at Cosmo, and you're a powerhouse at Hearst. Why do you think that Cosmo, of all the women's brands and magazines, makes for such juicy and, you know, TV that people want to watch?
Well, I think Cosmo is a magazine that doesn't take itself too seriously. It's about having fun wherever you are, in the workplace, in the bedroom. And it's really about women embarking on the adventure of what will become their life. And so it has all the elements. It's got fashion, it's got beauty, it's got career, it's how to self-advocate, how to negotiate. And it's got all the stuff in the bedroom that you are too nervous to ask your mum. Mm-hmm. And you don't always want to ask a friend because you might want to pretend you know some of this stuff. Right. And Cosmo is a bit like the older sister who tells you it like it is.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. I think I'm an only child, and maybe some of the questions that I had about sex and my body and, you know, things that I was dealing with at a young age that I couldn't necessarily go to my mom to, or didn't feel like I could read in the pages of Cosmo, which I think is
good.
Is
What
really
things
special.
Specifically? Let's discuss them. Tell me everything.
So, God, it started when I was 13. I'm just kidding. You know, obviously, this is not your first foray into docu-series and kind of like a voyeuristic kind of series, right, with work. So can you tell everybody a little bit about your career and how what your path was?
Well, I started as a journalist. I've had experience with television with Project Runway All Stars, which was so much fun. And in fact, it was the executive producer from that show that said, why don't we do something together. And in fact, he came into my office one day to say, let's work together on a show about Cosmo. And the day he did, there was a huge amount of drama going in the office, people running around, there were half-naked male models, and he just turned to me and he said, this is the show. And the next thing I knew, you know, he'd coerced all the staff and everybody was on board. But I was a journalist for a long time. I moved to America to be the New York bureau chief for The Guardian. Then I moved to the Times of London. And then I was very excited to sort of jump on board in the American market at New York Magazine. And I had an epic 4 years at Cosmo. I had the best time. It was so much fun. And, you know, you get all the best celebrities on the cover, all the best models in the world. You get people writing for you. We had Sheryl Sandberg, the COO of Facebook, as our careers editor. So it's been an unbelievable run and a great span of talent in the pages of Cosmo. It sort of touches on all elements of a woman's life. And a man's. I cannot urge enough men to read Cosmo. Just keep on reading it, guys, if you want to know what to do.
Do you get men who approach you and thank you, or, you know, ask you kind of absurd, not absurd, but outlandish questions, or what is the experience, the relationship with men and the Cosmo?
I do, but usually they're asking because I think they're asking because they want some advice and they want some help. And most people, at least the people I've talked to over the years, most people would like a little bit more sex. And I think what happens is people get stuck in a sex rut and they don't know how to get out of it. And, you know, sometimes they might suggest something to their spouse or their partner, and the spouse sort of cocks an eyebrow and is like, where are you getting this from? And so people are nervous to suggest new things. And Cosmo is really all about trying stuff and having fun. And, you know, what's the worst that can happen? You fall on the floor laughing.
Right.
No, the worst that can happen is you could end up in the ER, I admit. But
I think I read that story in Cosmo, actually.
I think you did.
So in the trailer for the show, one thing that really stuck out to me, I work in the fashion industry as well. You say, you know, it's not all glamorous, it's not all amazing. And then you say, actually, fuck it is really glamorous and amazing. What stands out to you is maybe some of the most glamorous things that you've gotten to do, and then on the other side of that, what's a little less so?
Well, I think if we start with our office, our office is pretty glamorous. And I like to say if Oliver Stone was going to make a movie about a woman's magazine, he would set it in our actual office. It's on the 38th floor of the Hearst Tower, which is a magnificent building, utterly sustainable building, first building to break ground after 9/11. Right. And it has magnificent views of Central Park, of downtown, 360 views of Manhattan.
That you see from your treadmill desk, I understand.
I see it from my treadmill desk.
Which I'm obsessed with, and want to ask my boss to get me one of those.
Interestingly, a treadmill desk is not that expensive, and it's so much better for your creativity and just for your general energy level. So I recommend them to everybody here, because we know sitting is the new smoking.
So I've heard.
No, so we should both be standing up and running around the stage.
Sitting and smoking.
And smoking. And I can tell you work in the fashion industry because of these magnificent boots, which are a glorious shade of blush silk.
Can I tell you that I have been complimented by Joanna Coles, and I feel like I can quit my job now because
you quit your job, take it to the bank. It's worth so much money.
And I have it on video, so I'm taking that to the bank with me. I'm gonna make us a boomerang.
Excellent, excellent.
Speaking of your career and your kind of power in this industry, I'm sure a lot of people ask you what advice you might have for a young person who's trying to make it in either the magazine industry, in the fashion industry, as a journalist. What is kind of like your number one piece of advice that you give people?
Well, it slightly depends on what they want to do, but the great news for young journalists starting out is that you have an unbelievable distribution platform at your fingertips in your phone. I mean, when I started out, it was actually quite difficult to get your work seen because it had to be published in a newspaper or a magazine for people to actually read it. Now we know you can just distribute it however you want to, and you can get it shared quite quickly, and you can build up a network, and you can really get some great stories out there and get great feedback immediately, which is exciting. And you have everything from, you've got Snapchat, you've got Instagram, you've got Facebook, you've got Twitter.
You're on the board of Snapchat, I read.
I am.
Right?
I'm on the board of Snap. And so there are many, many different ways for people to get what they're doing out there and see what catches fire, and then really hone an expertise in something you feel connection with your audience.
How do you feel? I mean, you know, it's social media and the internet is a great way to have your pieces seen. On the other side of that, it kind of has some cons as well. So what do you think, you know, where's the happy medium? How do you think we should be using Snapchat and Instagram and kind of like to our best abilities?
Well, I think it depends what you want out of it. I mean, the interesting thing about Snapchat is it's really best for communicating with your close friends. I think of it as a bit like a telephone call when you want to talk to someone just really genuinely. And the great thing is you can video, you can have fun on it, nobody's going to see it. You're not asking anybody to vote on it. I think Facebook and Instagram are both brilliant, but they're slightly more about exposing what you're thinking to the outside world. Right. And you have moments when you want to do that and when you want to put your humble brags or your trophies out there. Snap is really a much more intimate experience that you have with close friends.
Do you use Instagram stories?
I actually don't use Instagram stories. I post on Instagram, but I don't use the stories.
Got it. Something I wanted to ask you about, New York Fashion Week is coming up next week, and a big topic that has come up in my newsroom and, you know, amongst peers is the topic of diversity or lack thereof in the industry. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, and, you know, maybe why you think designers are a little bit slow-footed to hop on that train, and what you think the future looks like as far as more diversity on the runways and in fashion in general.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I think everybody working in fashion knows there needs to be bigger strides. Having said that, I've been attending fashion shows now in New York, in Milan, in Paris, sometimes in London, and I will say there is much more diversity now than I think there was. There's more diversity in age, in size, and definitely in race. And I think that's to be applauded. And of course there are still concerns that some of the girls are too thin, and every now you'll see someone come down and you'll just like wince and think, oh goodness.
Now there's a petition, I don't know if you saw recently, a group of 43 models wrote this open letter with the National Eating Disorders Association,
right,
kind of demanding more diversity on the runways and planning on applauding and celebrating those designers who are committing themselves to doing that, which I think is really cool.
Great, I didn't see that. I mean, modeling is tough business, and you really need to have a lot of self-confidence to go into it. It is grueling. And it doesn't feel like it's grueling, right? It looks as if all you do is wear fabulous outfits all day. But in fact, what it really is, it's a bit like being an actor in that you go to many, many what are known as go-sees, which is the model equivalent of an audition. And a lot of the time you are rejected. And there are so many old-fashioned assumptions about what a model should look like. And I think modeling agencies are reconciling themselves to having to figure out diversity in a bigger way. But I think those designers who do it should be applauded. And certainly we've had a range of people on the cover. We've always been, certainly when I was editing Cosmo, we were always super conscious of how can we provide role models for every reader. And there were lots of people that didn't want to be on the Cosmo cover, which we asked every month. I would have had Beyonce on the cover every month. I would have had Rihanna every other month.
I mean, I would have Beyonce on the cover of everything every month.
So do I, especially now she's having more.
Those twins.
Yeah, those babies. I'm very excited for her. But, you know, they're very busy. They've got other things to do. And so as a magazine editor, you're doing your best to find the best people that you can that will resonate with the reader.
Right. I was going to ask, I mean, now within your larger role at Hearst, do you think that's a conversation that more brands are having about kind of being more inclusive and about speaking to every reader as opposed to just the readers that we are used to typically associating with fashion and with those things?
Absolutely. It's a great question. Absolutely. And you will see all the empirical evidence shows that when there is diversity in management of a company, it directly impacts in a positive way the bottom line.
Absolutely, agreed. I want to talk to you about something that I actually just read before we got up here, which is a bit of a contentious issue. Back in July, you were interviewed by The Times, and at the end of the article, you said, if Donald Trump wins the presidency, that would be very bad for women. And I wholeheartedly, you know, took that and at the time was like, agreed, and now kind of here we are. and that's our reality. And I wanted you to kind of touch on that and what you think we need to do now moving forward, and kind of.
Well, I always look at these things through the lens of the Cosmo Reader. What does the Cosmo Reader care about? She's young, she's embarking on life, she's striving, she's ambitious, she wants to have a big life, she probably wants to have kids and a job and a great relationship and probably own her own house. And I think what she wants is equal pay for equal work, and we've seen that's super important to her. She definitely wants access to healthcare, and she knows that the single most important decision any woman will make will be, when does she have her first child? There's just all the research shows it's the single most important decision a woman will make, and she wants to be in control of that decision. She doesn't want a group of old white guys in DC deciding when she can or can't have a baby. So I think that's super important. She wants access to great healthcare. We also know that having a baby is expensive. It's one of the more expensive things most women will end up doing when they connect with the health service, certainly in the earlier part of their life. And I think
especially in this vast city of ours.
Right. Well, and especially in America as well, because we don't have a nationalized health service as they do in Europe, and certainly in Britain where I grew up. So I think healthcare, I think equal pay for equal work are two issues that are really central to a young woman's life. And those are not issues that Mr. Trump has shown himself to be a leader on.
You know, a lot of talk has been had about Teen Vogue, for example, coming out as, you know, kind of putting out some really important work about politics and about organizing. And there's a kind of a misconception, I think, about women's magazines in general, that they can't care about boots and also foreign policy. So what do you recommend for a young woman who does care about the Kardashians, who does want to read Cosmo, but also, you know, wants to organize and wants to protest and wants to stand up for her rights?
Well, women's media is used to being patronized by everybody, and I've always maintained you can be interested in mascara and the Middle East, and I'm thrilled for what Teen Vogue is doing. You know, the great thing about living in a big, free country like America is that everybody's voice gets to be heard, and sometimes you end up hearing voices that you don't like, that you don't agree with, but you nevertheless still have the freedom to protest at your end of the spectrum, and I think that's to be applauded, and people should do that if that's what they want to do. I think what you saw at the last election too is a sense in which many millennial and Gen Z voters, or the Gen Z voters that are 18 and able to vote, didn't realize the importance of voting and didn't understand that a vote really matters, and you can't just text a vote, you can't tweet a vote, you actually have to go to the polling booth and cast your vote. And what I think we're seeing now is a lot of people realizing that you can get involved. I'm hearing a lot of young women saying they want to run for office, and I think we're seeing a new level of political engagement in the country, which in the long term will be a very good thing.
And I think that's going to be great for women's brands as well, because, you know, now when I'm writing a piece, I'm thinking more about how it should be presented and how I want to communicate with the reader, as far as, like, does it matter that this person's wearing a sheer top today, or does it matter that this person was spotted, you know, protesting for human rights? Or, you know, I kind of feel like the relationship, because of what's happening and because of what we're seeing now happening in the world, I feel like the relationship will kind of mesh a little bit, which I think is a good thing.
Was there a question in there?
No. Oh, is this an interview?
Very good point.
Anyway, moving on. I just want to segue a little bit before we throw it out to the audience for some questions. I think probably what a lot of people want to know is what you look for when you're going to hire somebody, when you look for in an employee.
Great question. We look for flexibility, someone who's not going to pretend that we're in the Devil Wears Prada. We're actually in a real environment where everybody has to behave and get on with each other and get the job done. And we're looking for people who have imagination and energy and creativity and aren't always trying to do the same thing that's been done before. Right. And I think we're looking for people who aren't scared, people who will break the mold if they can and if it makes sense. And we're looking for risk takers, but risk takers who understand the flip side if it all goes wrong. But we're looking for creative people, people who are flexible and people who've got energy and want to work.
Absolutely. You guys taking notes? Because I need to go backstage and write some things down in my phone. And finally, why do you think that print is still important?
Well, I think all of it's important. I think the great advantage of a brand like Cosmo is that we can be where we know our reader is. And our reader is a young, really engaged young woman. She's absolutely at the forefront of everything tech. So we're all over Snapchat. We're all over Facebook.
You guys have one of the most watched Discover channels. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, we do. We do. And so we're everywhere that the reader is moment to moment. But we also know that people like to unplug, especially given the frenetic pace of online. And you never have to unpower a magazine. You can just, you never have to power down a magazine, I should say, on the plane. You can read it in the bath without electrocuting yourself, happily. You can read it in bed. You can snuggle up with a magazine in a way that you can't actually with a little cold glass telephone. And there are no haters.
More cozy.
There are no haters at the end of a magazine. There are only people that have your back, that support you. And I think that's the difference.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Joanna. I'm so pleased to chat with you. I think we're going to throw out some questions to the audience.
Hi, Joanna.
Hi.
Thank you for coming. I'm super excited about the show.
Good.
You mentioned in the trailer that on a daily basis, you expect each editor to bring their A game. So I was just curious to know what specifically that entails for each one of your editors.
Oh, that's a great question. I think that we expect people to come fully prepared for their day. I remember we once had someone come in, we were having a meeting, and she started unpeeling a yogurt. And I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I'm eating my breakfast." And I said, "Not in this meeting, you're not." And she put her yogurt down. It's like, come to work having had your breakfast. I am not here to feed you. I am here to help you discover your creative energy, do a great job. We are all working together. But if one person comes in not prepared, then it brings everybody else down. Do not be the weakest link in your group.
Hi. Thanks for being here and congrats on the show.
Thank you.
So I was wondering, since Cosmo is obviously a very big brand, when you were making the show, what was really conscious on your mind for just showcasing your brand to the world?
Well, it's a good question. And one of the things that we all agreed that we would do is we're not going to invent things for television. There's so much momentum and drama in a magazine anyway. You're dealing with celebrities, you're dealing with top models, you're dealing with writers. Almost everybody we deal with is temperamentally difficult. So our job is to try and harness their skills and bring their top talent to the magazine. And my job was to make sure that my team had the resources, both financially, but also sort of emotionally, to be able to deliver on that, and they did. But it's up and down, and I think this show is really for anybody that's ever worked, for anybody that's ever been in an office and knows the conflicts in an office. And you have people that are working on the same project who disagree about how best to do something. And what you see in this show is people loving working together, hating working together, being deeply frustrated, and then resolving it. And then every month we produce this magazine, which is our equivalent of the Super Bowl. It has to be a winner every single month. And that, if I did my job right, and if the editor does their job right, then it's bigger than the sum of everybody's work. It's bigger than the sum of your parts, and you can really enjoy and feel satisfied in having developed something that's really good.
I think we have one last question.
Hi, I read Cosmo all the time, and I love the personal stories.
Good.
And some of the personal stories are really emotional and really personal, obviously. How do you pick those stories, and have you came across a story that really touched you personally?
I have, and that's a very interesting question. A lot of our editors, and what you will see from So Cosmo, is they bring their lives to work because we are writing about issues that the reader is going through. And actually, Cosmo, one of the reasons I think it's been so successful over the years is because the editors are really in sync with their readers' lives. And that's not always true of a magazine. You can work on a food magazine and not be interested in food or never having cooked. But at Cosmo, all the editors are expected to bring their experiences, their friends' experiences, and this is what we discuss. And we had a very smart young girl in the office who disappeared for a little bit, and to our great sort of consternation, she had cancer. And she was treated for it. She wrote an extraordinary piece about it. She then had very aggressive treatment. She lost all her hair. We shot her with her head painted in gold paint, actually, which was rather beautiful because she talked about how she hated wearing a wig. She then appeared to have recovered. She took herself off to Paris to embrace new life. It had, having been so ill, made her sort of readdress things, and she thought, I'm going to do what I want to do. And 3 weeks into having moved to Paris, she was re-diagnosed with cancer. And so we had her write that piece too. And she's really been writing an extraordinary series of pieces, very emotional. She was really angry to have cancer. She's not one of those people that talks about it in cliched terms of a battle that she was going to win. She was like, this sucks. I'm 25. This is not what I expected to happen. And her brother very generously offered part of his liver as a liver transplant. And we're expecting that next iteration of the story. So you come across people both in the magazine. We have an extended network of contributors, and you're always looking for a story that you think other people can relate to, and that has a real emotional relevance to it. And we always try and have at least one, if not more, in every issue.
I know what I'm doing later. I'm going to read up on my Cosmo, I think.
Good.
Thank you so much, Joanna. Thank you guys so much for being here. You can watch So Cosmo is premiering. Well, you can watch the first episode, right?
The first episode's actually online right now, but the premiere of the show, it goes out live on E on the 8th at 8 o'clock.
There we go. Thank you so much again, guys.
Thank you very much.